Welcome to a special holiday edition of 101 Sports, where today we'll be covering
NFL draft prospects,
MLB free agency,
and college football conference championships.
And it all starts right now. Welcome inside a very holiday-themed edition of 101 Sports. I'm Grayons. This is Chase Strasser. And Chase, coaching carousel, Lincoln Riley, the money is being shelled out. What do you got to say?
The boosters brought their pocketbooks. I mean, $110 million for Lincoln Riley, and that would be enough. But no, this man is getting both of his houses paid for
both of them.
In Oklahoma. He's getting a $6 million mansion in Cali, and to top it all off, unlimited private jet access 24/7 for his family. I mean, I understand the whole storyline of, he's leaving the team, he's leaving the guys behind that trust him, but if they put that contract in front of me, I'm signing it.
Oh, I mean, if you're offering me, 9 figures to coach football, I mean, I'm guaranteed I'm taking that.
I think I'm getting in the wrong business.
I was about to say,
if this is the way the industry is
why am I
heading,
here when I could be coaching football? But, I mean, it's like $110 million for Lincoln Riley. I mean, USC needed something to rejuvenize their program. I mean, this is going to do it. But I think they're coming in and, expecting Pete Carroll kind of numbers. When they were winning national championships and, paying off his houses and buying him new houses and giving him unlimited access to private jets just for recruiting. I mean, even just talking about recruiting, I mean, so many players have decommitted from six players have decommitted, and they've already had a few commits as well.
He signed not too long ago, and this is happening right after. I mean, as far as we know, there's already 2 5-stars that have decommitted from Oklahoma. This is bombing Oklahoma's class and really helping out USC's, which needs it. But, yeah, this is huge ramifications for college football.
And I mean, also looking at Brian Kelly, and I think we've entered the era of go Tigers instead of, go Tigers. It's go Tigers, everybody. But I mean, Brian Kelly, going to LSU, leaving Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's a tough job, but I mean, going to Baton Rouge?
This one hurts a little more because Notre Dame actually had a chance to get into the playoffs.
They're 6th.
Yeah, they had a chance, but 9 years, $95 million will make anybody do anything. Yeah. But the way he handled it might have been a little worse. 2 a.m. text to the team, and then 7 a.m. meeting that lasted about 2 to 4 minutes, as far as we know. That stings a little more, but these contracts are out of this world.
I mean, Brian Kelly, he basically pulled a Bobby Petrino kind of move where he was like, hey, guys, I'm kind of out of here. Best of luck to you guys.
Yeah.
He wrote a Dear John letter and gave a 4-minute speech about how much Notre Dame means to him, and then he was out the door. So I don't agree at all about how Brian Kelly left, but, again, it's money talks. Money talks, I guess. But speaking of money that have been the Golden State Warriors, James Wiseman, Klay Thompson not even play. They're going to go play in the G League. Klay Thompson, all-star, one of the best shooters of all time in the G League.
Well, he is a full go at practices. He's coming back. The return is soon, and anytime you get a top 75 player in NBA history, that's going to help your team out, and a team that's currently tied for second in the West because of that one loss to that one team.
What a great team that is. I don't know what team that is, but that was a great game. Great game to watch. Steph Curry, 4-21. Mikal Bridges, But everyone, expects the Warriors to be these championship contenders. Well, which they are. They're tied for first in the West. They're 18-3 through 21 games. But, everyone's expecting, Klay Thompson to come back and be, the form that he was in 2018, 2019. He hasn't played in 2 years. He tore his Achilles in one leg, and he tore his ACL in the other. So, he's going to be debilitated so much because he's a defensive guy, and I don't see him, wasting a ton of energy on defense. He's basically going to be a spot-up shooter.
But this is the fact of the matter is they might not need 2018, 2019 Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
They're 18-3 right now.
Yeah.
And looking to be first in the West already, and then they're gaining Klay Thompson, who we know how good he can be fully healthy, and then James Wiseman, who, yes, hasn't played that much, but when he is on the floor,
barely played at all.
Career average is 11 points, a couple rebounds.
In 29 games.
He's a factor when he's on the floor.
He's a big, and obviously, they couldn't stop DeAndre Ayton. 24 points, 11 rebounds. Couldn't stop DeAndre Ayton.
Kevon Looney, defensive lockdown.
Not doing it. But also, I mean, special shout out to, I think, Tiger Woods. I mean, he posted the Instagram video about him swinging the golf club and hitting a few balls at the range. I mean, it's just great to see him back.
Yeah, even if it doesn't mark a return back to the sport, it's great to see Tiger Woods back out there recovering from that car crash, the horrific car crash that almost saw his leg get amputated. So it's just great to see him back out there hitting golf balls. Again, he stated that he might compete in a few tournaments, doesn't expect a full return back to the Masters, but it's just great to see him out there.
I mean, it's great to see him out there. Like he said, I think he almost lost a leg, and he's just, back on the golf course, hitting some balls. It's great to see. But what's going to be great to see is hearing the Goozer and Cole Noble taking his seat at the table to talk about some NFL draft prospects.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to this special holiday edition of 1-1 Sports. This week we're talking NFL draft prospects. I have with me Matt Laguza and Cole Noble to talk. All right, Matt, take it away. Top QB in this upcoming draft.
So for me, it's a really close race right now. No one's really stood out this year. I feel like there are the top 5 quarterbacks that you can think of: Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, and Matt Corral. And for me, it's going to come down to the end, but as of right now, it's got to be Kenny Pickett of Pitt. He has by far shown the most poise. He has been amazing on a team that doesn't have as much talent as the other quarterbacks do compared to their strength of schedule. So Kenny Pickett, he's thrown 40 touchdowns already this season, 7 picks. He's had a 68% completion percentage. He has been outstanding for a Pitt team that does not deserve to be this high up in the rankings and did not deserve to be this good. I think out of the quarterbacks, he might not end up as the best in the NFL, but going into it, he is the most NFL-ready player.
Yeah, man, I got to go with Malik Willis as my top quarterback. I mean, when it comes down to it, once we get closer to the pro days, once we get closer to the combine, and we see Malik Willis out there on the field and running and getting those numbers out there, the numbers are going to blow everybody away. I'm telling you right now, I looked at this guy last year. I said, we talked about it earlier this season on one-on-one. But I said that Malik Willis is going to be this year's Zach Wilson.
That's not looking too good right now.
Well, what I meant by that is he's going to be a guy that no one's talking about until it becomes the draft process, and all of a sudden he's now the top guy on the scene. This is a guy right now, 24 touchdowns and counting this season, broke his career high. He's had 2,600 passing yards this season with over 800 rushing and 11 touchdowns on the ground rushing. This guy's just what you want as a scheme fit, as a dual threat quarterback in the National Football League.
See, my one problem with Malik is, one, he's definitely had some trouble keeping possession of the ball this year. He's thrown a lot more picks. It's not that much of a concern because you're expecting to have some troubles at some point. But my one main issue is we don't know what we're going to see from him. He hasn't seen a lot of competition at Liberty. He's been able to really trick these mid-level defenses in college football, which isn't saying much about a defense, with his dual threat ability. He's one of the best runners in this draft. He's a good passer. I'm just a little concerned about how it's going to translate into the NFL.
And that's the most exciting part of the draft process.
All right, well, keeping it on the offensive side of the football, tell me your top offensive prospect heading into this next draft.
I mean, it's got to be Garrett Wilson. Who else can you pick? He's the best receiver in the class. He's the best offensive weapon in the class. This guy is a do-it-all receiver that's immediately going to translate to be a top wideout in the National Football League as soon as he steps on the field. Already, potentially next year being an Offensive Rookie of the Year type of player. Just of what we've seen. Garrett Wilson is a dude. Flat out, the guy can compete. He's got elite hands. He runs elite routes. His breaks, his speed, everything's where you want it to be at a high level. And just what he's been doing with the ball this year. Over 1,000 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns on the season, averaging 15 yards per catch. The guy's unstoppable. Who's going to stop him, especially once he gets to the National Football League?
Oh, there's no question about it. Garrett Wilson is the #1 skill player in this draft right now. So I'm going to look at someone else, though, and that's Drake London out of USC. You can never count out the USC wide receivers. Michael Pittman, Juju Smith-Schuster, it doesn't matter. They have always been outstanding. Now, the one thing with London is his injury history. Obviously, he's only played 8 games this year because he broke his ankle. But when he's healthy, my God, when you get him in the red zone, there is no stopping him. 6'4", 220, has extremely long arms, really big frame. He's extremely physical. He doesn't have the speed that some of these other receivers have, but he makes up with it with how tough he is. Yards after the catch, one of the best in the nation. And he also, 88 receptions on 122 targets in 8 games. He is a guy that you can just throw to and throw to and throw to, and he's going to get it done.
Yeah, I'm just honestly really worried about that season-ending ankle injury you talked about. Not a lot of receivers come back from that, especially translating to the league, having to rehab all offseason. You miss out on a lot of valuable time. So we'll see if Drake London can translate and can get back on the field come next year, but he's definitely an exciting prospect to consider.
No question.
Well, this year the offensive prospects are definitely interesting, but it definitely will be a defensive draft heading into next year. So who you guys your top defensive prospect?
I think everybody can agree that the two best players in this draft are both edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, I've got to say, coming into the draft, Aiden Hutchinson is the most NFL-ready player, but Kayvon Thibodeau has such a higher ceiling. He has been able to do so much with so little. His technique is mediocre compared to what Aiden Hutchinson has. And what he's been able to do, he has all the same intangibles that Hutchinson has, but his measurables, much better. His quickness, I would say he's a little quicker than Aiden Hutchinson is. But the one problem is, if you're the big upside with him is the Lions are going to be the one with the number 1 overall pick. I think we all know that. And they are not going to be good for a long time. So they have patience. They don't need a guy that's going to come out and get 15 sacks in his rookie season. They don't need that. They can take the time, perfect Thibodeau's technique, and really get to the better player in the future. So for me, with all the circumstances and what you have, Thibodeau's got to be the number 1 choice.
I disagree. I think Aiden Hutchinson, he's not the best edge rusher. He's not just the best defensive player. In my opinion, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to be the one going to the Detroit Lions if they get the number 1 pick, or potentially the Houston Texans. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is just a freak, and he's put it all on display. This past week against Ohio State really solidified his case and really make him rocket up the draft boards. Now, like I said, being my number 1 overall pick, it's looking like toward the end of the year he could be up there with other people's mock drafts as well. Just the speed and power combination that Aiden Hutchinson possesses. And yes, Thibodeau is a freak athlete, exactly what you want to groom to your style of defense. But Aiden Hutchinson is the most pro-ready player in the draft this year.
That'll be all from the college draft process. Next, we're heading to the MLB.
3. It's hot stove time in the MLB, and I've got Tobias Coker and Colby Cook to my left and to my right to talk about some MLB deals, guys. The money's being shelled out, but what's not going to be shelled out is the deadline right now and the lockout that we just got into yesterday. Can I get you guys' thoughts on the lockout real quick?
Well, the lockout, is going to serve a couple of purposes. One, the players want obviously better conditions, and two, MLB kind of wants to make some changes. But here's the thing: the one thing they are trying not to do, essentially, is the work stoppage of 1994, in which there was a strike-shortened year, there was no World Series. The Braves probably would have won that year too, and it was very, very sad. So here's what, some key takeaways. Looking at the Players Association, they're looking at a minimum increase in salary. Players want free agency at 29.5 years if 5 years of service time, or regardless of service time, 6 years after their contract. They're looking at a 12-team playoff field. Meanwhile, the league wants to change baseball completely. They're saying that their new kind of, proposal is going to go 2 divisions in each league, one with 8, one with 7. They're also looking at a 14-team postseason, and free agency would be for all players at 29.5 years old. So, there's a couple of, things there, and also MLB is looking at, now they're not, confirming this as of yet by any means, but they're looking at a minimum salary to try to avoid tanking. And it's going to hurt teams like the Rays and the Tigers, whose name of the game it is, to kind of, nurture that young talent and then send them on for those small market teams.
Any thoughts?
All of the owners who say that they don't have enough money, they all have tons of money. All of the franchises are valued at least $1 billion, with the Marlins being the least valuable at like $1.2 billion. So all the franchises that say they lost a ton of money and they don't have enough money, they're all kind of lying. They all have enough money to pay all the players. So it'll be interesting to see if the players can get more money out of the owners this time.
Well, speaking of getting a lot of money, right now, free agency, just insane so far. So we're going to break it down. Pitcher, infield, outfield, and who's going to be your biggest bust. So Colby, who's the top pitcher deal right now?
Oh, baby. The top pitcher deal for me has got to be Robbie Ray, because you look at it, look, the man has been, let's say, adequate with his first couple years with the Diamondbacks, but he's had a career resurgence. He's going For the Mariners, 5 years, $115 million. That's a great average deal. You know, he's a guy that's not going to overpower you. He's going to get a lot of ground ball contact. Should be a good deal for the Mariners, who are looking to rebuild.
So I had Kevin Gausman, who's going to Toronto on the same exact contract that Robbie Ray got, 5 for $115, and he's going to kind of slot in, replace Robbie Ray. He's more consistent. He's never been as good as Robbie Ray last year, but before that, Kevin Gausman was better than Robbie Ray because Robbie Ray was terrible. He had no command. He was walking people left and right. So Kevin Gausman's going to come into Toronto and replace Robbie Ray and really anchor that rotation.
Here's the thing, though. Okay. Kevin Gausman for the Braves, awful.
Correct.
Kevin Gausman for the Orioles, awful. He's had a late career resurgence based on his splitter, which at times this year he lost completely. If he loses the field for his splitter, he gone. Robbie Ray can at least get you a ground ball.
There is a little bit of kind of concern for Gausman as he only throws 2 pitches really, but Ray has lost command for years at a time. Like he didn't really have command for the first 6 years of his career. So I'd argue that they both come with flaws, but they're still, Kevin Gausman's the safer pick out of the 2.
And so now looking at the infield, Tobias, you have a deal that Colby is not a fan of whatsoever. Who's that player?
So I really liked Marcus Semien going to the Texas Rangers for 7 years and $125 million. He's coming in there. When they first signed him, I was a little confused because I was like, he's not a good primary player. But then when they signed Corey Seager to kind of really be their star, I was like, that Marcus Semien deal, $25 million a year, it's not going to be good the last 2 years, but I think the first 3 years he's going to overperform his AAV. So it's going to end up being even. He's going to make a ton of money for them. He's going to be, he can play all over the field, and he's going to lead them into the playoffs next year.
Look, Marcus Semien is plenty versatile, all right? He's plenty versatile. But when the Dodgers re-signed Chris Taylor to a 4-year, $60 million deal, it's short term. It doesn't keep them on the hook like the Angels Pujols deal. And in his 31-year-old season, and he can play all 9 positions on the diamond. Are you kidding me? That is an insane amount of value for a guy like Chris Taylor, who quite frankly could have gone somewhere else and secured a pretty hefty bag.
And so now looking at our outfield deals, I mean, you just mentioned Chris Taylor, who can pretty much play left field, center field, right field, but you're not going to have him as your outfielder. Who's your outfielder?
I mean, I got to be honest, Avisaíl Garcia, I've seen him crush pitching with the Marlins, or with the Brewers, going to the Marlins for years. 4 years. He's an underrated player. He's got great metrics. He can play all around the infield. 4 years, $53 million in his age 30 season. So you're only locking him up till he's 34. He's, going to decline the last 2 years, but not, too much. I got to say, Kim Ng has had, to be fair, a rough, start as the Marlins GM, but this signing is very, very solid.
I do like the Avi Garcia deal, but I really like Mark Canha to the Mets for 2 years for $26.5 million. It's really short term. What it really does is it raises the talent floor for the Mets. Last year they were playing Albert Almora and Kevin Pillar, and they're not really that good. And they bring in Mark Canha. He's going to raise the talent floor. He's got really good traits that are going to age well. He's got a good OBP, so he's really going to help bring stability to the Mets.
I love Mark Canha. I do. But, he's hitting 6th or 7th in a Billy Bean Athletics lineup. And what have I always said on the show, people?
What have you
Mets
said?
gonna Met.
Mets gonna Met. Mets gonna Met.
Right. Well, there's that. That is a big factor.
And speaking of biggest bust, you have a Mets gonna Met right now.
Oh, Senor Two Eyes. Look, I love Max Scherzer. I do. I love Max Scherzer. He's one of the greatest pitchers of all time, one of the greatest pitchers of our generation. But at 37 years old, to be signing him for 3 years, 130? Are you kidding me? That's like Trevor Bauer money, except Trevor's younger, with arguably more upside. Look, Max Scherzer, he still throws gas. Yes, his velocity's down a tick. He's always been reliable. But year 2 and year 3 for that deal with the Mets is going to hurt, because if they cannot get offense around Scherzer, then what point's it going to do? That was like his entire career with the Nationals up until the surprising 2019 season. He had years with the Nationals where he was fantastic, but had nobody around.
That's true. And another point on the Scherzer deal, he missed his last start in the NLCS because of dead arm. So to give a pitcher a ton of money coming off dead arm is not really recommended.
And look how that turned out.
Yeah, go Braves. My biggest bust would be Javi Baez to the Tigers. He's never really hit. He's a defensive shortstop, but they got him for 6 years, $140 million. That seems like a massive overpay for a defensive shortstop. I like that they're spending money, but his traits, he swings at everything. He doesn't really walk. It's going to age terribly, and then when he moves off shortstop, he's going to have no value whatsoever.
So biggest bust I'm seeing, going to the Mets and leaving the Mets. Do you guys like the Mets? No, I'm guessing. But that's going to do it from the MLB Diamond. We're going to be heading to college football and our championship game predictions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 101 Sports. Now we're talking college football championships. We're going to start off with the SEC. Gray, who do you got?
Clearly, the best team in the country that has been for the entire year is the Georgia Bulldogs, Bryson. Why are you picking Bama, Bryson? It's the Georgia Bulldogs. Their defense has been immaculate all season. 8 out of their 12 games, opponents have scored less than 7 points. No one has scored more than 17 points on them the entire season. And Bama is about as consistent. I don't want to make dirty jokes on this show. But they just haven't been consistent. They barely beat Auburn, who had no Bo Nix. I just don't see Bama doing it. Georgia's going to kill them.
Okay.
Explain yourself.
Georgia has Stetson Bennett, who's a great quarterback. They have Jordan Davis, who's probably the most athletic lineman to ever play the game of football.
He's a monster.
Yeah. But Georgia is Georgia, and Georgia always finds a way to lose big games. They lost in the national championship when they were up by double digits at halftime. They lost the following year to Alabama in the SEC championship. They always find a way to lose to Bama. And it's important to note that Nick Saban assistants are 24-1 against Nick Saban himself. So the odds are not in Kirby Smart's favor.
But when was that one loss?
It was this year.
It was this year.
But it was to Jimbo Fisher. It was to Jimbo Fisher, who's probably been away from Nick Saban the longest out of any of his assistants. But I know that Georgia on paper is technically the better team, but again,
Not technically.
yeah, but Georgia is Georgia, and they find a way to lose against Alabama almost every single time, and that's why I say roll Tide roll.
I just don't see it though, because I mean, in those 2 games, who was favored? Bama was favored in 2017. We all thought Bama was going to beat them in 2018 because Bama was running the entire show that year. But now they're the definitive team. No one's even come close to beating them.
I mean, I understand that completely, but I'll just keep reiterating the point pretty much that Georgia is Georgia. And pretty much not only just Georgia football, but Georgia sports in general almost always find a way to lose championship games, except for the Atlanta Braves this past season. But I just think Bama is a program of winners, and I don't think Georgia has that program of winners.
Well, if there's this much bickering over your first pick, I'm excited to hear the rest. Let's move on to the Pac-12. Who we got, Bryson?
Well, I'm going to go with the Utah Utes. I know Oregon has looked pretty good this season overall. They have a good offense, but Utah played Oregon 2 weeks earlier and beat them 38-7. I have not seen a 31-point turnaround in 2 weeks, probably at any level of football. Utah basically owned Oregon that entire game. They know them inside and out, and I don't see how Oregon can possibly make up for that. It'll definitely be a closer game, I think, but Utah just looks so dominant in that regular season matchup. I don't see how Oregon can beat them.
And I mean, Utah deserves to be a top 10 team. I mean, they came out, as you said, beat them 38-7. It wasn't even close. It wasn't that close. But again, this is what happened to Oregon in 2019 in Justin Herbert's final year. They go out and they lose a bogey game that they shouldn't lose and ruin my top 4 predictions on this show. And then they go out, they win the Pac-12, and they win the Rose Bowl. So, I mean, I think the same thing's going to happen here. I think they can turn around considering it is a neutral site game. You're not playing it in Utah, which is a very tough place to play. But I just think Oregon bounces back. But again, they've had some injuries. C.J. Verdell's been out for basically half the season. But I think Anthony Brown, he's going to get it done not only through the air, but he's the team's second leading rusher at quarterback. I think he gets it done on the ground.
All right, well, we did Pac-12. Let's do Big 12. Bryson?
Mike Gundy simply is the coach of the year so far, no, without a doubt. If I could give it to someone just not based off of credentials, I would give it to Ed Orgeron since it's his last year, but you have to go with Mike Gundy for doing based off credentials. Oklahoma State has looked phenomenal on offense. They turned around the first part of their season where they were really struggling against bad teams, and they've basically run the entire Big 12 circuit. And they beat Baylor 24-14 earlier in the regular season, so the same reasoning that I used for the Pac-12 is still going to be used for the Big 12, is that Oklahoma State beat Baylor soundly in the regular season, and I think they'll do it again in the conference championship.
And we finally agree on, I definitely think the Oklahoma State gets it done. I mean, they're doing something in the Big 12 that is so foreign. They play defense. And again, they only allowed Baylor to score 14 points in that matchup earlier this season. I just don't think Baylor has the offensive firepower to get it done. If you stop their rushing attack, and I mean, their rushing attack has been phenomenal, but I think Oklahoma State's D-line and their front seven is going to get it done. Because, again, they just play defense. Baylor cannot hang with them defensively. So I think if Oklahoma State can put up about 21, 28 points, they're going to get the Big 12 and make it into the college football playoff.
All right, we got 2 more left to go. Big Ten, Gray, who you got?
As your reasoning for, Georgia's going to Georgia, Michigan's going to Michigan. I think you come off the most emotional game your entire season. They hadn't beat Ohio State in 10 years. You come off, you beat them in the Big House. I think they're going to have a letdown against Iowa. Personally, and again, love Michigan, love their offensive coordinator. He's in line for the assistant coach of the year. I think he's done a phenomenal job with their rushing attack coming in. They wanted to run the spread. Now they're getting back to Michigan football. It's snowing outside. You get 4 yards in a cloud of dust, and they put points up, and they get it done defensively. But I just don't trust them. I can't see Jim Harbaugh coaching in the college football playoff. I just don't see it.
Okay, Michigan-wise, this is the year. Michigan has improved so much under Harbaugh. They're focused. They're having fun. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan is a dark horse to win the national championship. But all jokes aside, pretty much, all jokes aside, the biggest hurdle for Michigan has always been Ohio State. That's always been the thing that's been tripping them up, and they've gotten over that hurdle. They have looked very good this season. They have probably the best offensive line in the country. There's no question about it. We saw it in that Ohio State game. They have the best offensive line. And Iowa hasn't played anyone within the Big Ten this season. They haven't played Ohio State. They haven't played Michigan State, and they didn't play Michigan in the regular season at all. They probably had the easiest Big Ten conference schedule out of any Big Ten team, and they still lost to Purdue by double digits at Purdue.
At home.
I mean, Iowa has really been struggling in the second part of their season, and I feel like Michigan has finally put the pieces together. I wouldn't be surprised if they do Michigan it, honestly, as you put it, but I just think they have the pieces there, and I don't think Iowa can put together a 4-quarter game against them.
I just think Iowa's secondary is just phenomenal because Michigan, they're going to run the ball, they're going to run the ball, they're going to run the ball. But you need some kind of outlet passing. And Iowa's secondary has been shutting down wide receivers all season long. I think it's 4 different players have 3+ interceptions. So I think if Iowa takes out the passing game, they put about 8 players in the box, and they can stop Michigan's running attack, I think Iowa pulls the upset, though.
All right, well, I wanted to end with the ACC.
Of course you did.
Because I feel like you're going to be a little more passionate
Let
about
him
this
go
one.
first.
All right,
I want to hear this blasphemy.
Okay, there's 6 words as to why Pitt is going to win in Charlotte this Saturday.
Want to hear him. Let me hear it.
Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett. He has passed for over 4,000 yards this season. He is definitely one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now, and Wake struggled in a few of their last games of the season. We saw it against Clemson. They allowed 48 points against a Clemson team that's been a shell of their former offensive past. Same thing applied to, or they did good against UNC, but their defense just isn't there, and Kenny Pickett is going to pick them apart.
Wake Forest is winning the freaking ACC championship. I said it now. I don't give a frick about Kenny Pickett. I don't care. I don't care about him at all. He's overhyped. I don't believe in him at all. I'm sorry, Matt Laguza, for your fantastic analysis of Kenny Pickett. I don't see it at all. Wake Forest's main weakness has been their rushing attack. Where's Pitt's rushing attack? I don't see it. Pitt has played one RPO-heavy team the entire season, and it was Western Michigan. And they gave up 44 points and lost the game at Heinz Field. I see Wake Forest going into the Bank of America Stadium, and I see Sam Hartman throwing dimes to Jakari Roberson and A.T. Perry. I see our rushing attack. I see freshman Justice Ellison, who is the baby-faced assassin of this rushing attack on this Wake Forest team. I see Wake Forest going in there. I don't give a flying frick about Kenny Pickett. I wasn't going to say anything bad. I'm sorry. I know you love Kenny Pickett, and I know you want to go full Yinzer mode because you want to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm sorry. Wake Forest, this is 2006 2.0. Wake Forest is taking the chip.
Okay.
Wow.
Two things about that. One, I'm not going to pick a team that lost to Clemson by 21 points this season.
Care.
I'm not going to pick them.
I'm not picking a team that lost to Western
Second
Michigan.
off, here's one of their biggest hot takes. If Pitt hadn't choked against Western Michigan and Miami,
they did.
If they didn't, they would be in the conference. They would be in the playoffs right now.
They'd be in the conversation.
Yeah, they'd be in the conversation, and they beat a very good Tennessee team in Neyland Stadium as well. That's hard for any team to go into Neyland Stadium and win.
Okay, Wake's 2 losses again. UNC, Clemson. Let's dissect that again. Talk about all you want about
21
preseason
points,
rankings.
21
About preseason
points.
rankings. AP top 10 teams. Western Michigan, Miami. Miami hasn't been anything since 2003, since that horrible pass interference call that basically cost them a program for 15 years. And then you look at Western Michigan, the MAC. They were last in the MAC for half the season. And they gave up 44 points. I'm just saying, Sam Hartman has been underrated. I predicted on this show. I predicted it. I said Wake's going to go either 8-0 or 9-0, and they're going to be in the ACC Championship game. I predicted this back in September, and I love being right. If there was one thing my mother knows is that I love being right. And I will be right, Bryson Burns.
If there's any other team in the nation other than South Carolina State, an FCS team that gave up 48 points against Clemson, then please let me know. But their defense is just not there for Kenny Pickett.
It's their passing, it's not their rushing. I'm sorry that I had to yell at you.
All right, well, that was a lot, but that's all from College Football Conference Championships. A lot to unpack. Next, we'll be back with more one-on-one sports. Thank you for watching this holiday edition of One-on-One Sports.
Make sure to click the subscribe button and watch this video and like it, and watch all of our other videos and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at One-on-One Sports. And as always, whose side are you on?
Let's get a good throw here.
Oh!